Well, let's get right into it, guys. Welcome to the local business lunchtime webinar series. Apologies for our 1 minute lateness, everybody. Adam Butte is my name from the Authentic Sales Training Academy. I'm excited to be co-hosting this 6-week live and interactive series with you all on how to not only survive the potential rough waters that may be coming, but to thrive well beyond it. We've put together an expert panel of industry leaders in the business advisory, banking and finance, sales and marketing worlds. All will be hosting a quick 20-minute session covering key topics of interest on how to restructure for future business expansion, growth and success. We have heard from Matt White from MJW Advisory, Phil Imhoff from Bank of Queensland Robina Branch. Last week it was Glenn Bossy from 2020 Financial Services. Today we've got Mark Grant from Costless Payment Solutions. We actually have a special guest coming on next week, an economist from Bank of Queensland as well, which we will email you all out the details for that, followed by Mr. Nick Cree himself and myself wrapping up the series. We'll keep them short to 20 minutes. We'll open the lines for questions at the end, so make sure you do mark which speaker in particular that you're wanting to talk to. But today, we've got Mark from Costless Payment Solutions. Now, Mark was working for the big four banks for nearly 20 years in business banking. Suddenly, he could not continue doing what he was doing unexpectedly. Pillaging of businesses, clubs and associations for fees and charges didn't quite ring the bell for Mark. So with the introduction of surcharge laws into Australia in September 2017, Mark has developed a suite of payment solutions such as EFTPOS terminals, direct debiting, online payment gateways, and zero payment integration, which can be provided to business clubs and associations with no fees for the entity. No time like the present to reduce the issue of reducing profits and raising business costs. So with that, Mark, the floor is yours. How are you, mate?
G'day, how you going, Adam? Welcome, everyone. Thank you very much for giving me some time this afternoon. I just want to start with 2 facts for you, just to get a little bit of, let me say, structure about what I'm about to talk about. So today, while we are here in Australia, there's more than 6 million credit card transactions being transacted through over 760,000 EFTPOS terminals. So if you're a person that thinks that cash is still king, well, I kind of, challenge you with that figure anyway. The other thing too, and this is no disrespect to Phil, who's on the call with us, is that last year, the banks, the 4 major banks here in Australia, their total profit was $19.6 billion. So I don't know about you, but that sort of has my eyes rolling backwards when I think of those sort of figures, especially when we here in Australia, no matter what the size of our business, our club or association is, but we're looking at being faced with a recession. And that's what myself, previous speakers and speakers to come are all trying to impart ways to help you. So without further ado, I'd like to start with my first statement, which is, recession can impact your finances, therefore cost reduction in your business is paramount. So I'd like to just run through a couple of different ideas I have, very, very simple ideas. I'm not recreating the wheel, on ways that you can actually reduce costs in your business and consequently ways that can lead to then improving your household disposable income. And once again, no disrespect to any bankers on the call. If you have a home loan or investment loan, and I'm going to make a presumption that you took those loans out with a bank, and you have not had any contact with that bank for 12 months, I strongly recommend you make contact with them. Please follow up with them to make sure that they do respond back to you, because from my experience, and no disrespect to Phil, sometimes they're a little bit lax in returning phone calls and emails. Why I suggest you contact them is obviously because of the change in interest rates that have occurred over the last year. And there may be, in inverted commas, possibility that you could save money. And $1 saved, in my eyes, is $2 gain. So that can help you obviously within your household cost of living pressures that we are now experiencing, and which you don't have to be Einstein to figure this one out, look like increasing even further. Further to that, business lending. So if you've got a business loan through a bank, once again, follow them up. If you hear crickets from your bank regarding your email or phone call to your bank regarding your business lending or your home or investment loan, it's then I would strongly recommend you speak with a mortgage broker. Now, there are many around, and the benefit of speaking to a broker is that he or she has the opportunity to deal with products outside the realms of the banks. And I'm not saying something that's a little bit riskier to you and your finances. Don't know about you, but if you don't have solar, electricity costs are starting to go through the roof even further, obviously reaching the sky. So there are certain websites you can visit to review and to seek cheaper rates of electricity provision. Also, if you are a business and you've got commercial electricity costs, I actually personally know a business here on the Gold Coast which can review those costs for you also. Well, next one is one that we don't even give much thought to, subscriptions. So, I don't know about you, but I've certainly done it over my time in business over the last 5 years. I've taken our subscription, maybe 2 years ago. It was really the flavour of the time, it was suiting my needs. And as time goes by and as life gets busier, we just continue to pay that money out. Now consider, if that's a $40 a month subscription, there's $500 a year. Wouldn't you rather that $500 a year be going towards perhaps electricity costs, perhaps your rates, perhaps even to a holiday? I know for those in business, having a holiday is something quite quite humorous. We don't get holidays that often, I'll take them. So yeah, review that. Obviously, you need to run NBN in your business. So now there are many players in that space. So once again, if you haven't reviewed your NBN providers' cost and service that they provide to you over the last 12 months, strongly recommend that as well. There are some online solutions available to review that and to give you some advice. Further to what Glenn Bossy from 2020 Financial Services said last week, once again, I cannot believe that we like to insure our vehicles and our homes, but without insuring ourselves, we don't have those assets. And we can, I've seen it happen far too often in my banking life. So with that in mind, if you have not yet reviewed your income protection, your personal life insurance premiums and costs through your financial planner, once again, strongly recommend that that's a case as well. Further to the insurance theme, it also, that follows through with your home insurance and your business insurance. Many brokers out there now that can take the time and the confusion out of comparing policies with policies, because far too often we're comparing apples with oranges, and you may be paying a cheaper cost but losing 15% of the benefits that you really need to have insured. If you are looking at purchasing a major asset, let's say like a vehicle, 9 times out of 10 we would go to the BMWs or the Audis of the world and just deal with them wholly and solely. I recommend you don't do that. The reason being is RSCQ here in Queensland has a motor vehicle broker service attached to them. So all you need to do is phone that, if you're an RSCQ member, phone that service, mention the vehicle you'd like to purchase, and then what they will do is they'll do the shopping around and deal with the car yards on your behalf. What does it cost for a service like that? It costs you nothing. And I know firsthand someone who has bought an Audi last week at my suggestion using that solution, and they've saved close to $12,000 on the purchase of their Audi. So who wouldn't want to save $12,000 this day? The next one is payment solutions, something very, very dear to my heart. And what Nick will be putting in the chat for you is an offer for you, for me to review your solutions. So if you're accepting card payments in your business, whether they be face-to-face, whether they be over the phone, whether they be through a website, whether you're looking at wanting to, how do I reduce my cost of accepting card payments over the telephone? They're all solutions that I'm able to help with and have been helping businesses, clubs and associations for the last 6 years. So this week alone, across Australia, I've saved businesses over $400,000 in bank fees that they've been paying to the banks and didn't know there was another option. So most people say it's a time-consuming scenario. Well, I'm here to take the time, give you back that time. The next topic I'd like to talk about briefly is impacts of recession on business lead to reduced cash flow, decreased demand, and subsequently changes to the ways of doing business. So it depends on who you talk to. Many people will say we're in a recession here in Australia now. It's a matter of opinion, and everyone's opinion varies, matters to me. So business may find it more difficult to generate its usual sales volumes during a recession. So if your sales are reducing, your profits reducing, your costs are still increasing at home. So how are you going to take care of that imbalance? Because unless you do, you'll be batting your head against a brick wall, and you'll certainly get a big enough headache from doing so. During a recession, expenses are normally slashed to account for a reduction in profits. So, if you're someone who's relying on, people spending money with you, well, maybe what you need to do is think a little bit deeper. Think how you're going to counteract that reduction in people wanting to spend money with you. As Phil Imhoff from Bank of Queensland alluded to a couple of weeks ago, lenders normally tighten their belts during these times, which make it more difficult to access credit. So, as a result of that, businesses more than likely need to spend more time in chasing invoices. Chasing invoices is like chasing your tail. You can go around in circles. So I have got a couple of ideas for you on how you can actually reduce that time spent. Now, what recession has done in the past and can do is give you the opportunity to reinvent yourselves. Maybe to use that very, very famous word during COVID, to pivot. So, maybe looking at innovations to cut costs, innovations of ways to do things differently. Maybe you were thinking of implementing a different policy or different procedure. You never did that because you didn't think the time was right. During a recession, as I mentioned, it is the time available to reinvent yourself. So maybe it is the time to think about, implementing that policy or procedure. Something that's very dear to my heart and something that, does sort of go to the back blocks a bit. And I'm not having a go at anyone on the call or singling out anyone, but rigid customer service principles are paramount. This is the way of maintaining relationships with your clients during a recession. So if by chance you have some gaps in how you practice your service offering, maybe now might be a good time to start thinking about how I can improve that. Because that's a way of having you stand out from the crowd, stand out from your competitors, is by really niching down and perfecting your customer service principles. Just with that in mind, some statistics from the ABS, which have just been released, is Australians are saving 19.8% of their household income compared to the first quarter of 2020, some 2 and a bit years ago, when the figure was at 6%. So that gives you something to really think about and some real petrol behind what I was just mentioning. My third topic is during a recession, it is important that you maintain a good relationship with your financial institution. I know Phil from the Bank of Queensland prides himself on his relationships with his existing clients and prospective clients. But during a recession, inflation drops, borrowing rates tend to remain low. So if you can jump through those financial hurdles I mentioned earlier, maybe there are lower loan repayments that are available to you, either through your bank or through your broker that I suggest. Adam, that is my quick summary of my thoughts on thrive and survive during recessionary times.
Excellent, Mark. Thank you.
Yeah. So what's the best way, Mark, to for business people to save money on FPOS costs and that type of stuff? How do they go about it? And
yeah, thanks, Glenn. Look, firstly, what I'd like to say there is to anyone either on the call today or anyone listening or watching the replay, is if you are someone that is passing on a private surcharge at the moment, you have to be very, very careful in the rate that you pass on. So with that in mind, a restaurant here on the Gold Coast 3 weeks ago was fined $98,000 by the ACCC for breaching surcharge laws. So I want to prevent anyone from having to pay a fine of that nature. So to answer your question, Glenn, on your screen right now, you have my website, which has a contact form straight to me. My mobile number is there. My email address is there. I will help anyone. And the reason why I will help anyone is I understand the importance of saving costs to weather the storm on what we're facing, but also consequently to help you, feel a little bit heavier in the pocket with some money to address, the cost of living pressures we're going through.
so it doesn't matter if you're a small business, a sole trader, a big company, all aspects you can help.
I can help anyone. That's right, Glenn. Yeah, thank you. I certainly can, and certainly can save money, no doubt about it.
And anyone listening into this, I've had the pleasure to know Mark for 30 years, so I highly recommend you reach out to him because he'll go beyond to help your business. So yeah, highly recommend Mark.
Yeah, thank you, Glenn.
I've just got a question, Mark, if I can ask one.
No, you can't. No, you can't, Nick.
Okay. You mentioned customer service and the importance of customer service, which I'd have to agree is paramount as we move into this times we are now. When like traditionally, I think passing on the surcharge costs to customers has been one of those. Some people like it, some people don't. But how do you work with your customer service side of things when you're passing on the surcharge so that they understand it and that they're happy enough to actually pay that rather than have the business absorb it?
Yeah, thanks, Nick. Great question. It's a question I'm posed several times a day by businesses of all different sizes around our country. So really, the point of difference is that when a business, whether we're talking about an FPOS terminal, whether it be an online payment gateway, and the business is going to be passing on the transaction costs. With what I do, they're passed on automatically. What we do is specifically around the FPOS terminal is we provide a sign, and that sign basically states, for us to keep our costs low, we are now passing on the following surcharge. Now, with businesses I've dealt with, and there's been close to 3,000 of them in the last 5 years, we have not yet had one customer react adversely to a business passing on a surcharge. Why? Because I think I suggest to my clients to go one step further, and that one step further is, for the want of a better word, is to saturate every piece of social media you have. From your website, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, where you just blast out that, hey, we're charging surcharge. And look, if people don't believe in surcharge, and I make that statement around clients here in Queensland, is that each time we go and fill up our cars, there's a surcharge built into the fuel price. So you can't escape. It is here to stay. And look, businesses that won't consider passing on a surcharge, well, if they don't, are they going to still be happy to continue to go home with reduced profits each month? Ultimately, that's what it's going to lead to. It's ultimately you pay for the cost somewhere.
Oh, we've got feedback. That's on my end.
Thank you. Anyone else got some thoughts or questions for me?
Mark, I've got some clients that have aggregated payment platforms because they are large exporters, both in the financial services space and the software space. So interested to talk to you perhaps offline as to how you may be able to help them, because I assume that most of the Australian retailers, and perhaps you can talk about that, are they using, what are the common EFT or FL machine or types of things that they're experiencing here in Australia? Or do they use to transact here in Australia, more so to the point?
Yeah, thanks, Matt. Look, I could probably talk for the next 2 hours on all the different solutions that are available. So the payment solution space is still evolving. So to answer your question, there would be a way that I could help them to reduce their costs and also their time in processing, without a doubt. What's important to me is to deep dive, and 2 questions is: 1, what do you have now? 2, what improvements would you like to make to what you're using now? So if I can understand those 2 questions, there is no doubt that I have a solution that can add value to them. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah.
Mark, I think you raised a really good point before. Clever marketing has been hiding hidden costs. And I think consumers are well aware of the hidden costs, particularly if you look at the tyre shops: buy 3 tyres, buy 4 tyres, buy 3, get 1 free. We all know that's rubbish. You're paying for 4, right? And inside of that, you're also paying for all the delivery costs and everything else that's associated to the landing of the goods. So I personally prefer being upfront with people, and when you're upfront with people, then from a customer service point of view, you're operating with an integrity, and people don't feel like you're ripping them off. They accept that there are costs associated to this. And Matt, as an accountant, and as Mark says, if people keep discounting prices by whatever, however you want to, essentially you're discounting your profit by including a service charge, you're only going to be putting yourself out of business. So I think it's fair and reasonable, particularly for small business owners, to be upfront. Don't be afraid to be upfront, and stand behind what you do. Don't discount what you do.
Yeah, because the ACCC is active. They've got officers on the ground right around Australia this moment, going into businesses, looking to ensure that they're complying with the surcharge laws. So.
Well, I wonder if I could ask some of the people in the room to comment about, at the moment, particularly with wholesalers or those that are reliant on imported products, notwithstanding services and everyday Australian businesses, all of a sudden there's rapid price increases. So price increases that came in July, price increases that came in August, price increases that came in September, and those that are even quick enough to jump on those price increases may go out to clients, because some people don't. They try and weather that storm for 6 months or 12 months before they do, and I think that's too late. But they may have gone out in August and said, well, hang on a second, fuel prices have gone up, material prices have gone up, delivery costs have gone up, all of these prices have gone up. So we put our fees up by 3 or 4 or 5% or whatever it was. But then they suddenly need to do it again. But their apprehension then is are the clients going to accept 2 price increases in a matter of 4 or 5 months? And my comment is well, you probably need to have that discussion with them. So for the marketers in the room, or those that are, relationships is obviously a fairly interpersonal type of thing, but how do we broad base explain the increase of our costs when we implement them once or twice or 3 times in a year or even more?
Yeah, and it's a good point you make, Matt, because you're fighting a losing battle in my eyes with doing that, because for us on the Gold Coast, if we did that, I could foresee us being hunted out of the city pretty quickly.
Well, I guess with my clients, where they feel, and they come to me with a 3.876% price increase or whatever metrics they think they use, I think they need to go bold and come in with 10%, you know, because I feel that clients generally accept a price increase, but will they accept multiple price increases? And sometimes 4 price increases at 2.5%, which equals 10, is less palatable than one of 10%. So anyway, just be interested to hear everyone else's comments about that.
I reckon there's 2 trains of thought around that, Matt, because if you're a service-based business, then where are your price increases? If you're a product-based business, then absolutely you can justify more regularly because of the landing costs of all the goods. A great example for me, we had a tree lopper come and say that the cost of everything's gone up. My answer is, what's the cost of everything in tree lopping? You know, have you actually increased your wages for the guys that are coming here? Or is it the tools that you're using? Or is it the trucks that you're driving? Is it the petrol? Like, where can you substantiate to me your cost increase? I don't mind paying more. But it's when you have a couple of large ones that come out of the blue and you're talking a 10 or a 15% increase, when the economy flicks back the other way, like with the petrol prices that are constantly up and down, do you see those businesses starting to lower their prices, or do they keep it at that higher price range and take more profit? So I think that's where consumers are a little bit cautious on those constant increases, whether they feel like they're justified or not.
Yeah, well, I guess it comes down to, you know, are you selling, you know, a highly valued product or service, you know, in which case you're less likely to be governed by, you know, other market factors. Not an economist, not a financial broker, not a financial planner either. That's my point of view. Because certainly if you're offering your services or product based on cost and price alone, gee, you arm wrestle every day of the week, and whether you're on the Gold Coast or in Brisbane or in Sydney, you know, I think you sort of making it hard for yourself if you're constantly doing it. So, but you know, annual reviews I think are pretty important. But you know, there are those, particularly, you know, in the wholesale or construction trade, that you know, they may have contract signs for work to commence in, you know, January, February next year, you know, where products aren't yet landed, but they've signed a contract with a client 3 months ago. So obviously we're finding a lot of construction companies going under at the moment. Yeah, it's a tricky one, and it's an important one. I think diabolically, I'm discovering clients that are only increasing prices now, and they say, Matt, but we haven't increased our, well, would you increase your price? At, oh, we looked at as I said, you know, they came up with a formula of 3.876% or whatever it was. When was the last time we did price increase? Oh, 2018. I'm like, you say, you're really only offering a price increase on 2018 prices, you know. So, oh, but you know, how do we get the client to swallow that? So, look, it's a real factor, though. You know, you can't. I find that when clients carry their clients for a month or 3 months or 6 months or 12 months, you know, they generally let themselves carry a lot of cost and eventually erode their profits. So you need to be right on top of it, in my view. And there's probably no one set formula for every client in every industry, but it's certainly tricky. And, you know, importantly, communication, right?
Yeah, and I guess that's why having a good relationship with your accountant / business advisor, where you're continually reviewing your books each year, gives you that opportunity to reassess. I've got another question, Mark. You're talking before, I know we're just a little bit over time, but you're talking before about finance brokers doing particular deals and taking it away from the big banks. When this could probably be Phil, a question for you as well. When you're finding people that will come to the banks and then go to the brokers to try and factor out other deals, where do they sit when if they do want to come back to the banks, Phil, and say, all right, we've obviously negotiated a cheaper price here, don't necessarily want to take business away from you here, but can you how would you as a bank branch owner fit into that equation?
Well, a lot of people don't realise, but we regularly review prices on home loans and products, and all we've just got to be asked the question. But you know, we're refinancing from brokers back to us as well. It works both ways. Just because you go through a broker might not necessarily mean you're getting the best offer as well too. But but it's just something, as Mark's indicated, communication, just talking to your bank, whoever they are, asking the question, and then give them the opportunity to come back to you. And if they don't come back to you with what you want to hear, by all means, it's an open market, and you go out and shop it around. And costs. Yeah, I'm listening to you talk about in different industries. I totally agree with what you're saying about service industries. The cost structures are different. Building is a pretty difficult subject at the moment. The banks, because we work off fixed price contracts for a construction, house construction, or even a business commercial construction. There's so many builders out there in cash flow stress at the moment because they're tied into fixed rate contracts, and the banks have recognised that, and there's no easy solution to that either too. It's they've got to pass costs on, and they're building clauses into the contracts, which with the right to review on an ongoing basis because of what's happening.
Excellent. Any other questions from any of our other guests before we put a bow on it?
Thank you for sharing your your information today, Mark. It was really good, mate.
Pleasure, Glenn.
Thanks, Mark.
Pleasure, Paul.
All right, awesome. Well, Mark, how can people get in touch with you if they want to follow any of this up?
Sure. Whatever is easier for people to use. So mobile 0419 762 478. My web address is right there, so www.costlesspaymentsolutions.com, or my email is mark.grant@costlesspaymentsolutions.com. And I'm also on LinkedIn and Facebook, Twitter, Instagram as well. Whatever's easier for them.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate you sharing your knowledge and expertise with everybody today. And next week, we have a special guest that's going to be joining us. Peter, I'm hoping I'm getting his surname right. Is it Monkton, a leading economist from Bank of Queensland, who's going to be sharing some of his views on the economy. And we're also going to be hearing from the one and only Mr. Nick Cree. And Nick's going to be talking about why personal branding is more important than business branding. And that topic in itself, I believe, has a lot to do with where pricing can fit into it. How to build an automated lead generation flow that works continuously and consistently. And Nick will share his top 3 strategies, apps, and tools that every business must absolutely have in order to succeed in a recession and beyond. So with that, gentlemen, thank you so much for your contribution again today, and looking forward to sharing the floor with you all next week. If you have any other questions, or you're watching the replay, or on whatever platform that might be, just pop them into the chats, and we'll definitely absolutely respond back to you.